Welcome to the Box Score Sports Podcast.
Sure.
Okay, let's do it. Let's start with your Philadelphia Eagles. Last year they finished 14-3. Of course, they won the Super Bowl. Congrats on that, by the way. Um, Offense, they ranked eighth. They were 29th in pass and second in run offense. And like you said, that's largely because they didn't really have to pass the ball. They could run all
Yep.
over teams. And then they
Yep.
were second in defensive scoring. Total defense when it's yards, I don't really care much about. I care about just
hmm
how many points you allow.
Yeah.
And they were second in the league in that. So let me know, Jordan, what was your favorite move that they made this offseason?
So I kind of touched on it earlier, but definitely for me, it was re-signing Zach Bond.
Okay.
I really, really was a fan of him last year. That first game against the Packers, he just kind of showed why they brought him there and how he was going to fit. And then all year, he just kept making plays, had the interception in the Super Bowl. And I know going into the offseason, they had several people to pay, and a lot of people had said Eagles don't pay linebackers. They're going to probably do defensive line, maybe try to bring back Milton Williams. But for me, I think Zach Bond, that's kind of the center of that defense. So the fact that they did pay him, they let some other guys go that they had to. But yeah, for sure, bringing back Zach Bond was my favorite move.
Yeah, that was a good one. I put re-signing Barkley. I think that was important. But
Yeah.
I also like overall just like how they just one thing I really love about the Eagles is they doubled down on strength. And even though they did lose Becton, they brought Lane Johnson back and brought in two other offensive linemen, and they have like one of the best in the league, but they're like, hey, let's keep it that way. So they're trying to keep that as strength. So I really like that they strength on strength. Like,
hmm
let's keep our run game strong. And I really like as far I know there was a couple moves in there, but it's basically like let's keep our offensive line top tier. And I really like that
Yeah.
they did that.
Yeah, I know they lost Becton, but I think Steen is gonna go in really well. But I mean, Becton was a guy they just kind of brought in, flipped him around,
Right.
kind of made that guy a lot of money, by
Yeah.
having him come there. But yeah, I was again offensive line, like you're saying, pretty crucial. So you would have liked to see maybe him come back, but can't pay everyone. So
That's it. Yeah. But they didn't leave it. I feel like when you bring in two, three guys to to see what you can do to replace like
mhm.
one, your odds are in your favor in that case. Okay.
Yeah.
Least favorite move that they did.
That was a tough one because it's hard to argue with anything, how he does, but there are things you don't like. What I picked was the CJ Gardner Johnson, letting him go. I looked at, they went to the Super Bowl in 22. He was on the team. They couldn't keep him in 23. I don't know what it was funny. They let him go for 1 year. He goes to the Lions, comes back. They win the Super Bowl again. And I don't think it wasn't that much money either. I just wasn't sure why they didn't maybe try to keep him because as we've seen now, like through training camp, that second safety position is kind of an issue where I think if you would have kept him, that would have helped a lot. He was just a hard hitting player, loves football, so it was tough to see him let him go for I think not a lot of money to keep him. So that was if I had to pick one, that was my least favorite. So
Yeah, that's what I did too. Like, what was my least favorite move? I don't think it was necessarily a bad move, and you understand the moves. I
yeah.
thought of CJ Gardner Johnson as well, but I went with Darius Slay. Uh,
hmm
he was one of my favorite Lions when he was on the Lions, and then when he got traded to the Eagles, I still like him.
Yeah.
But and we'll get into this a little bit more, but they had one of the best pass defenses last year. In fact, they only allowed 174 yards of passing a game, which is the lowest since any team since 2000, which I think
Yeah.
was the Ravens defense in
Yeah.
2000.
That would have been the
So
year. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So I mean, it's not. I mean, they gutted the team out pretty good on in the secondary. So it wasn't just Slay they lost, but I really like Slay. I understand it was for cap reasons and they were looking to
Yeah.
re-sign other players, but it's still a bummer because one thing I like when teams do is like when they try to defend their title and you want the key players you think
Yep.
are the key players to like help defend it, but
hmm
um understand it. But it was kind of my least favorite move that they
Yeah.
made is letting Slay go. So.
Yeah, it was like I would have agreed between those two guys. I think Slay's number was a little higher than CJ's, so
Hmm.
I guess that was why I thought, well, if they could have maybe kept one of the two instead, they let them both go. So, but
Correct. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Biggest green flag you have going for the Eagles into the season.
we touched on it. I had to go the O line. They keep most of their starters other than they had to let Becton go. But we'll see what Steen does there. But that offensive line, they're huge.
Hmm.
Yeah, the Eagles social media stuff has done a great job putting out stuff on YouTube. So watched quite a bit of that. And like Jordan Mailata, Lane Johnson, not Eric Dickerson. What the heck's the other guy? Lane Dickerson. No,
That Lane Johnson and let me look for.
Johnson. Trying to think what's that
Oh yeah, yeah, Dickerson. You're right. But
Dickerson.
Landon Dickerson.
Land and yeah,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
But those guys are all coming back, and then the center Jurgens. Those guys they're all big, super strong. You were talking about the value of that earlier, so yeah, that's my green flag. I think it's going to be tough to handle them to get many sacks, and they're just going to have big lanes for Barkley again. So definitely my green flag is that O line.
Yeah. I had that written down. I thought you might say that.
Yeah.
So I also wrote down defensive line. They
Hmm.
still, they lost a couple players, but I just think they built so nice. Again, they just add strength on strength through years. And they're doing it at the most important positions, in my opinion, in the NFL, other than quarterback, is the offense and defensive line. And so even though they lost a couple different people, they still have Smith, Carter, Davis. And I just think that they'll be fine. And as long as they can get to the quarterback rushing four like they did all year last year throughout the playoffs and throughout the season, if they can get to the quarterback rushing four, the secondaries it can mask the woes of the secondary if there are woes.
Yeah.
So I just really like how Howie has built this team. I get
Yeah.
I get jealous watching him build the teams, but
I
yeah,
know.
he does a good job.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's nice to not have the issues that other teams were having. You just people, I mean, in that division, you have the Cowboys and the Commanders both like, are they going to pay this guy? Or are they not? And I'm like, you never have to worry about that with the Eagles. And if they lose someone, they replace him with someone that's going to work. And yeah,
Yeah, again, just the most important positions I think in the
yeah.
league if you're gonna, rank them. Okay, biggest red flag you have going into the season.
Oh yeah, so that would be for me. It would be the defensive backs, the unknowns there, because we were talking about Slay and CJ. So trying to replace those, and that has been a major issue in training camp. You've got like Sidney Brown has not been that great. You look at they have the two cornerbacks that are struggling. They trade for a cornerback, and we'll see what he does. But yeah, that's been their definite issue is who's going to fill those spots. You've got Q on the one side, Quinion, and then you got Cooper DeJean, who I know they really want to keep as that nickel kind of slot corner, keep him in the middle to make plays. So it's not a total loss. Like they have other really good pieces, but if you have one bad guy, is that the guy other teams are going to target? Is that the guy that's going to give up big plays? And I know that Andrew Makuba, the kid they drafted, he had, that pick return against the Browns, and then he had that fumble recovery, and they're like, "Oh, great, this guy, like, he won the starting role," and then he hurt his shoulder like yesterday or the day before. So it's like just when they thought they had that second safety position figured out, they end up, we'll see how bad his shoulder is, but yeah, big red flag for me is that safety beside Blankenship, and then the other outside corner. That would be my big red flag.
Yeah, I agree. I went a little bit more like the youth movement on defense.
Mm-hmm.
Um, One thing when you lose guys like Slay and Bradbury and C.J. Gardner Johnson is you lose sort of like the leadership, and they're also able to like Brandon Graham. There's more people, but they
Yeah.
lose their leadership, but they're also able to like cover mistakes for young players because they just know
Mm-hmm.
they've been there, done that before.
Yep.
Now it's like you don't have that to lean on the team anymore. You don't have sort of the veteran players on the team on the defensive side of the ball, the leaders. And
Yeah.
so the thing that I think that could maybe derail the Eagles season as far as repeating as champions is maybe just being too young on defense and needing like a year or two to mature together. I think that could could be the only thing that I could think that would stand in
Mhm.
their way.
Yeah, good point because they are young. Even their so-called veterans, you got Blankenship, but he's still really long. I mean, young Jalen Carter. I mean, yeah, looking around, they are Bond. I think's maybe the oldest guy on defense for him, like that starter. So yeah, they are super young. I get what you're saying there. So
Yeah, just you always like to have some veteran presence on each side of the ball, and
mhm.
I just feel like, they lost a lot of people that you would be like, man, that guy, like, Josh Sweat's gone,
Yep,
like just guys who've been there, done that.
yeah,
So yeah, we'll see what happens, but yeah, just a concern of
mhm.
mine.
Good
Oh,
point.
okay, give me your fantasy football go-to.
I had to go with Barkley on that because the team just runs through the running back. The receivers, they can have good games, but are they going to be consistent all year? You just don't know. But Barkley's going to be the one consistent there. Hurts, he's going to get a lot of 1 yard touchdowns with the tush push, but his passing is just not going to be there. So I mean, he's a good quarterback if you want to, do that. But yeah, definitely Barkley. I mean, I could see him going for 2,000 again this year. So
Yeah, I had Barkley down, but I also put down Hurts. Like, I don't think you drafted him that high. But he was 33 in the league in rushing yards last year. So like out of all
yeah,
the running backs, he's 33rd in the
yep.
NFL. So he's basically like almost the second back plus his
Mhm.
passing. And like you said, he had 14 touchdowns, which was like a top 10 amongst running backs. And he had more than Barkley.
Yeah.
So, I mean, like if you can
And
get him like later in the draft and not spend a ton on a quarterback and that's who you get, that I think that'd be pretty good. So,
yeah. And the
yeah.
Eagles, they do have a tougher schedule this year.
Hmm.
And so teams have talked about them maybe being in games a little more, which will help all their fantasy
Right.
players because they're maybe going to have to try a little harder, not be pulling guys in the third quarter because
Sure.
they're up so much. So,
Correct. Yeah, no, that's a good point. Okay, let's go ahead and predict. So I like to mention the over-unders because it's like what the kind of public is kind of thinking about the Eagles. So the over-under for the Eagles is 11 and a half wins. What say you, Jordan? What do you think the Eagles finish
I
this
would
year?
I would say over on that. I have them going 13-4. I know
Okay.
last year they went 14-3. They do have a tougher schedule. Looking at it, I think this is, talent wise, the best team in football. We'll see about the defense. That's maybe why I took them down a game. They lost some good players, but their division is pretty weak. I mean, the Commanders are good, but I think they'll win almost all their division games. So I think they'll have a pretty hefty win total.
Okay, yeah, I had not too far. I had over as well, but just 12 and 5. So you had 13 and 4. I have 12 and 5. I agree with you. I think their schedule is a little tougher. I think because of their defense, they might, be like 4 and 3 before they hit the ground running or something like that.
Yeah.
Like just because I think with, like I said, the sort of youth movement, I think it'll just take a minute for them to get rolling. They did start out the season last year 2-2.
And
So
two.
they had kind of a slow start. So maybe just a slow start before they hit the ground running,
Mhm.
but don't panic if they they get a
Yeah.
slow start. I think it's just for the defense. I think it might be a minute for
Yeah.
those young guys and figuring out, like you said, who's going to play where. They might figure that out as soon as you actually play real football. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So, yeah, I have 12 and 5. Thanks so much for watching this clip of the Box Score Sports Podcast. I hope you guys enjoyed. If you haven't yet, please subscribe to our channel. Follow us on Instagram and Twitter or X. And we'll talk to you guys real soon. See ya.